Happiness is a strange and complicated experience, something everyone wants, everyone searches for. And yet so few people can clearly define. If you ask someone what happiness means, they might say it is feeling good, being successful, having love, achieving goals, or finally escaping problems. But the deeper you dig into these answers, the more you realize that happiness is not a simple emotion you can capture, hold, or store somewhere in your mind. It is more like a constantly shifting state, influenced by biology, environment, memory, expectation, comparison, and even illusions your brain creates to keep you motivated or safe. The pursuit of happiness is so universal that it has become a cultural mission. We are taught from childhood that we must chase happiness in everything we do. We make plans, we set goals, we search for meaning, and we assume that if we just achieve the right things, happiness will finally appear and stay. But psychology shows something very different. The more you chase happiness, the more it slips away. This is because the human brain is not designed to be constantly happy. It is designed to survive, adapt, detect threats, and push you forward. Happiness is not the goal. It is a temporary signal, a brief emotional reward system that evolved to reinforce behaviors that keep you alive. When you try to transform happiness into a permanent state, you trap yourself in a cycle of desire, disappointment, comparison, and self-criticism. It becomes something like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it drains through your fingers. One of the reasons happiness feels so difficult is the treadmill. This is the psychological process where your mind adapts quickly to positive changes. You get the job you wanted, and you feel excited for a day, a week, maybe a month. Then your brain normalizes the new reality. What once felt like a major achievement becomes just another part of your routine, and you crave something else, something new, something bigger. This adaptation is automatic and unavoidable. The brain is wired to return to baseline because staying in a constant state of excitement or joy would be biologically exhausting. Your emotional system resets itself so you can keep functioning. But this creates a trap. Happiness becomes something you feel only briefly before it fades. And each time it fades, you assume you did something wrong or that something is missing. You start thinking you need more success, more attention, more money, more love, more achievement, more admiration. You compare your life to others because your brain uses comparison as a shortcut to determine whether you're redoing enough. The problem is that comparison destroys happiness because there is always someone who appears happier, richer, more attractive, more successful, or more fulfilled. And even if you become that person in someone else's eyes, your brain will still find someone who seems to have more. Chasing happiness becomes even more painful when you confuse pleasure with meaning. Pleasure is short-term and sensory. Meaning is long-term and emotional. Many people believe happiness comes from constant pleasure, parties, shopping, dopamine hits, validation, new experiences, or escaping discomfort. But pleasure is not designed to last. It peaks fast and declines fast. It loses impact each time you repeat it. This is why people keep chasing stronger and stronger versions of the same pleasures. But meaning works differently. Meaning is built through challenge, effort, connection, responsibility, growth, and even pain. People who feel their lives have meaning are not always happier in the moment, but they feel more fulfilled, grounded, and emotionally stable. You may not smile every day when your life has meaning, but you feel something deeper that happiness cannot replace. The problem is that society teaches you to pursue happiness, not meaning, and this sets you up for emotional confusion. You may be building a meaningful life, but feel like you are failing because you are not constantly happy. You may have relationships, goals, values, and experiences, that matter deeply. But because they do not produce constant joy, you assume something is wrong with you. This creates a conflict between what your brain needs to grow and what you think your life should look like. Another psychological trap comes from expectations. Happiness is not created by the events themselves, but by the gap between what you expect and what actually happens. If reality meets or exceeds your expectations, you feel satisfied. If reality falls short, even slightly, you feel disappointed, even if nothing objectively bad happened. High expectations make happiness fragile. Low or flexible expectations make happiness more accessible. When you constantly chase happiness, your expectations rise without you noticing. You expect to feel good more often, to succeed faster, to be appreciated more, to be treated perfectly, to never feel lonely, to never feel bored, to never feel uncertain. But life does not operate this way. Life is full of waiting, setbacks, misunderstandings, temporary confusion, and moments where you feel lost. When you believe happiness is the default state you should always be in, then any normal human experience begins to feel like a failure. You begin to live in resisting boredom, resisting sadness, resisting frustration, resisting imperfection. But resisting emotions only makes them stronger. Emotional suppression amplifies discomfort. This is why people who chase happiness often end up more anxious, more stressed, more insecure, and more disappointed. Social media intensifies all of this. You are constantly exposed to exaggerated highlights of other people's lives. You rarely see their fear, their self-doubt, their failures, their confusion, or their loneliness. So your brain forms a distorted reality. Everyone else seems happy, confident, successful, and fulfilled, while you are the only one struggling. This triggers this social comparison loop, which activates the same brain circuits associated with physical pain. Your mind interprets perceived inferiority as a threat to your social survival. Social psychology shows that the more time you spend comparing your happiness to others, the less happy you feel. You begin to believe happiness is something everyone else has figured out except you. And this belief creates emotional pressure and self-judgment. You start pretending to be happier than you are. You may smile when you don't feel like smiling, agree with things you don't believe, hide your authentic feelings, or push yourself to appear strong. But pretending to be happy does not make you happy. It creates emotional distance between your real self and your public self. And this disconnect can lead to exhaustion, emptiness, and even depression. One of the most fascinating psychological discoveries is that humans are terrible at predicting what will make them happy. You think certain achievements will change everything, but when you finally reach them, you realize your emotional world barely shifts. You return to your old patterns of thinking, worrying, doubting, dreaming, and craving. The brain projects happiness into the future to motivate you. But once you reach the future, the feeling dissolves because the brain has already moved on to the next desire. This is why you always feel like you are almost happy, almost fulfilled, almost where you want to be. The emotional finish line keeps moving. Happiness becomes a moving target, and your mind convinces you that you just need one more achievement, one more change, one more upgrade, one more improvement before you can finally relax and enjoy your life. But when you finally get there, you feel the same. This creates what psychologists call the arrival fallacy, the illusion that happiness exists in the future. It keeps you running endlessly, believing that the next milestone will finally unlock the feeling you want. But happiness lives in the present, and the future is just another version of now. The irony is that happiness tends to appear when you stop obsessively searching for it. Studies show that people who focus on growth, curiosity, gratitude, connection, self-acceptance, and authenticity experience more happiness as a side effect. People who chase external markers of happiness, status, admiration, perfection, or constant pleasure experience less happiness and more emotional instability. The key is understanding that happiness is not something you pursue directly. It is something that emerges when you create the right conditions in your life. Happiness grows in moments of presence, not in future fantasies. It grows in acceptance, not in resistance. It grows in connection, not comparison. It grows in authenticity, not performance. It grows in meaning, not distraction. And most importantly, happiness grows when you stop treating it as a destination and start seeing it as a temporary emotion that comes and goes like waves. Happiness becomes less complicated when you stop demanding that it should always feel good. Real happiness includes uncomfortable emotions. It includes uncertainty, effort, sacrifice, responsibility, and moments where you question yourself. You cannot feel joy if you never allow yourself to feel sadness. You cannot feel gratitude if you never experience loss. You cannot appreciate peace if you never know chaos. The emotional contrast is part of the human design. Your brain needs contrast to recognize meaning. If every moment of your life were permanently happy, your mind would adapt and happiness would lose all emotional value. It would become invisible. This is a paradox. Happiness requires the presence of other emotions to exist at all. The more you try to eliminate discomfort, the more you weaken your ability to feel genuine joy. When you let yourself experience the full spectrum of emotions without judging them, without forcing them to disappear, and without comparing them to a fantasy version of what life should feel like, happiness becomes more accessible. Not because you chased it, but because you stop resisting the natural rhythm of your own humanity. Another important truth is that your mind creates stories about your happiness based on memory, not reality. When you look back at your past, your brain edits your experiences, removing details, reinterpreting events, and reshaping your emotional memory. You often remember the feeling of being happy more clearly than the actual moments. Nostalgia gives you the illusion that your past was happier than your present. This makes you believe that something has gone wrong with your life, even when nothing has. Your mind compares the imperfect present with an idealized memory. But the past wasn't perfect, and the happiness you remember wasn't constant. It was simply a collection of meaningful moments that your brain highlighted and saved. You are experiencing meaningful moments today too, but you rarely recognize them in real time. Human beings are not designed to notice their happiest moments while they are happening. The brain is more focused on problems than pleasures because problems demand action. This is why happiness often becomes clear only in hindsight. The moment you stop expecting happiness to feel obvious and constant, you begin to notice it in the quiet, subtle parts of your day, in moments of rest, in moments of connection, in moments of relief, in moments of authenticity. These moments are small, but they accumulate into something profoundly real. There is also a biological reason why chasing happiness makes you feel worse. When you try to force happiness, it activates stress circuits in the brain. You begin to worry about whether you are feeling enough, doing enough, achieving enough, experiencing enough. You start monitoring your emotions like a scientist studying a problem. This constant self-monitoring creates pressure and anxiety. It prevents you from relaxing naturally into positive experiences. Happiness cannot grow under surveillance. It grows in moments when you stop checking how you feel and simply exist. The more you try to measure happiness, the more it slips away. This is why people who meditate, spend time in nature, disconnect from notifications, or engage deeply with hobbies, often report greater happiness. They stop evaluating their emotional state and focus on being present. The mind becomes quieter, softer, less critical, and in that quiet space, happiness appears more naturally. One of the most liberating psychological discoveries is that you do not need to feel happy to live a good life. You can live a deeply meaningful, satisfying, impactful, compassionate, and fulfilling life without constantly feeling joy. Happiness is not the foundation of a good life. Meaning comes from choosing actions that align with your values, not your mood. It comes from doing things that matter to you, even when they are difficult. It comes from building connections that feel real, not perfect. It comes from growth, not comfort. When you build your life around meaning, happiness becomes a natural side effect. It appears not because you chased it, but because you created a life worth feeling good about. Understanding the psychology of happiness also requires understanding the psychology of many people are unhappy not because their life is bad, but because they believe they are not enough. They think they should be better, stronger, happier, more productive, more confident, more successful, more disciplined, more perfect. This constant internal pressure creates emotional exhaustion. You judge yourself harshly for feeling normal human emotions. You criticize yourself for not being happy every day. You compare your inner struggles to other people's external performances. You carry invisible expectations that no real human could ever meet. When you release the need to be perfect, you free yourself from the emotional weight that prevents happiness from emerging. Self-acceptance does not mean giving up on growth. It means treating yourself with the same compassion you offer to others. It means recognizing that being human is not a flaw. It means understanding that your value is not measured by how happy you appear to be. Happiness becomes more stable when you focus on emotional habits instead of emotional goals. Habits like gratitude, presence, curiosity, patience, kindness, and reflection build long-term emotional resilience. They create an environment where happiness can grow naturally even in difficult times. Gratitude shifts your attention from what is missing to what is meaningful. Presence reduces anxiety by grounding your mind in the only moment that truly exists. Curiosity turns fear into exploration. Patience softens frustration. Kindness builds connection. Reflection helps you understand yourself with clarity. These habits do not force happiness. They support it. They make your emotional world stronger, more flexible, and more capable of experiencing joy without collapsing when challenges arise. Another reason people struggle with happiness is that they attach the emotion to identity. They believe that being happy makes them valuable or successful, and being unhappy means they are failing. But emotions are not identity traits. You are not your sadness. You are not your anxiety. You are not your confusion. Emotions are temporary experiences moving through your mind. When you stop identifying with your emotional state, you stop fearing it. You stop resisting experiences that feel uncomfortable. You allow emotions to come and go without interpreting them as evidence that something is wrong with you. This emotional freedom opens space for happiness because you stop fighting your internal world. You stop creating secondary suffering, the suffering that comes from judging your own suffering. You experience life as it is, not as you think it should be. Happiness also deepens when you build genuine connections. Humans are social creatures, and loneliness is one of the most powerful forms of emotional pain. Many people believe happiness comes from independence, success, or personal achievement. But research shows that long-term happiness is much more connected to relationships that feel supportive, safe, honest, and emotionally intimate. It is not about having many people around you. It is about having a few people with whom you can be your real self. Happiness grows in moments of being seen, understood, accepted, and valued. It grows in connection, not performance. It grows in vulnerability, not perfection. When you share your fears, hopes, doubts, and dreams with someone who listens with empathy, you experience a form of emotional healing that no achievement can replace. This is because connection regulates your nervous system. It calms your mind, reduces stress, strengthens resilience, and reinforces your sense of belonging. Happiness is often a byproduct of feeling connected to something greater than just yourself. To truly understand happiness, you must also understand resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover, adapt, and continue moving even when life becomes overwhelming. People who are resilient do not avoid pain. They transform it. They learn from their experiences. They ask better questions. They develop stronger emotional tools. And they grow. Resilience does not eliminate suffering, but it reduces the fear of suffering. When you are not afraid of difficult emotions, you become more open to positive ones. The fear of pain blocks happiness more than pain itself. When you trust your ability to face life with strength, compassion, and flexibility, your emotional world becomes more stable. Happiness becomes less fragile because it no longer depends on everything going right. Instead, it grows from the confidence that you can handle whatever comes. In the end, happiness is not a treasure you find. It is a rhythm you learn. A rhythm of feeling, reflecting, growing, connecting, relaxing, experiencing, and allowing. You do not need to chase it. You simply need to stop running away from yourself. Happiness arises when you stop trying to control every part of your emotional world. It arrives when you allow yourself to be human. It arrives in moments when you stop performing and simply exist. It arrives when you choose meaning over perfection, presence over pressure, authenticity over comparison, connection over isolation, growth over comfort, and acceptance over judgment. Happiness is not the final chapter of your life. It is a quiet companion walking beside you, appearing gently in the moments when you stop looking so desperately for it. And if you are watching this right now, remember, happiness is not something you earn. It as something you experience when you give yourself permission to live with honesty, curiosity, and compassion. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply human. And being human is enough. If this message helped you see happiness in a new way, don't forget to subscribe to MindDecode HQ for more deep psychological insights. Your mind is more powerful than you think. Let's explore it together.